Are you looking at the relationships around you?
Are you living in an echo chamber?
We're going to talk about that right now. Welcome to the Gaily Dose. We are so glad that you've taken this time for yourself to spend with us on a topic we think is fantastic, and that's you, because we believe that you are very valuable. And we're going to ask you if you please just subscribe, like, follow. You have no idea how much that is going to help our mission. Jake?
Yeah, and as always, we are sponsored by AHF, as you already know. AHF is where you can get all of your gay healthcare needs met, regardless of your ability to pay. Check them out at ahf.org.
That's right. And we have a very special announcement today. We're going to ask you to please check out forthekid.org. Forthekid.org is actually a group that does the annual toy party here in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And if you're not familiar with it, all you gays out there, gays, girls, gays, and theys.
Literally anyone.
Really. It's a great opportunity to get together, get in some of your fabulous Christmas best, and show up with some gifts for, I think it's like a gift and a small donation to get access in. We're going to be there.
Yeah. Mariah Carey's going to be there.
I'm
sorry. I always get them confused.
Yeah. Detox
is going to be there.
She's going to be in the house.
Yeah.
Make sure you get your tickets today.
That's true, right? You don't want them to run out. There is a limited amount. It is at the Biltmore, so it's going to look like dress your best. We're going to do the red carpet. I don't know if you guys know that, but we're going to be on the red carpet there.
Live e-news.
Yeah, so check it out. So to this topic is actually topic number 8 in our series of 12 values that we think are going to help pump up the best, happiest you. And this one is on inclusivity. And we really think that inclusivity is going to enrich who you are as a person and make your life so much more happy.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And my first question to you boys to sort of unlock this one is, it's really about just sharing an experience in which you met someone or found someone who was very different than you that really kind of hit you the right way and sort of made your world better. Who wants to go first?
Honestly, when you brought this up to us, I have met a phenomenal friend of mine who took years to become really vulnerable and close with. His name is Sam, and he's my next door neighbor. We originally started working together, and there was definitely a difference in like the way we communicated. Mm-hmm. I'm an extreme extrovert. He was extremely introverted, so he was quiet. His demeanor was like a little more shy, so I'd go in and like try to have these bomb conversations of just being like, spill me your guts. And it was something that he had a hard time doing. Mm-hmm. And whether or not, like, we're both white men, we're both gay, so on the outward appearance, diversity might not be there, but intrinsically, we are in different ballparks entirely. Mm-hmm. So inclusivity can really depend even on the personality traits that you have with somebody. Mm-hmm. With me and Sam, it was 2 different ballparks. And originally, I would have this natural cadence to want to be with people who can talk my ear off just the way I can talk somebody else's ear off. Mm-hmm. But what was so beautiful is he showed me this incredible beauty and value to silence, or not being able to fill a space with just your words just to fill it, that there's an importance to presence. And in that small moment of learning his difference in love languages, which was gift giving, quality time of acts of service. Mine were immediate to words of affirmation, physical touch, like you have to be there, you have to be extroverted. There was these tendencies that I learned from him that brought inclusivity into the way I learned how to love. So it's interesting, like the ways diversity can spill into us, you know? I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, so, it was hard when you asked us about, any one person, and I really couldn't identify just one person because I felt my life is so enriched by the diversity that I intentionally surround myself by. I mean, even, the group of guys that we have in our group chat,
Yeah.
So Helmut, divorced, a gay father of 3 beautiful daughters. We also have another friend, big guy from West Virginia, beard, looks completely different than me. And we have another friend who's an artist. And so we have very different backgrounds, but it makes life that much richer. I learned something from all of my friends. And I think that's really what I get from the diversity, is just the opportunity to learn different perspectives, learn different approaches to maybe challenges that I'm having. And I found it to be just an overall more enjoyable way to go about life.
Baby, of course.
Totally.
I agree.
I was going to give an example of, I recently went on a trip for a birthday out of the country, and it was a wonderful little birthday trip. And I met a Japanese woman, and I just knew that I had a couple extra days, and I spent some time with her. And I didn't know who she was, because it's like grabbing a person out of a bag, like, oh, okay. She was just in the group chat, and she was going to be able to go with me. And the point of the story is this: I'm highly extroverted. This person tended to be very introverted.
Right.
I found that my entire culture is built on sort of expression, and and she's like observing and very gracious and thankful. And what I learned in our exchange from spending like time living together in this hotel room for 2 days and adventuring together, she helped me see things about myself that I didn't even appreciate and love about myself in the time that we spoke together.
That's so hot.
And I spoke into her life in some areas of her own family where she was moved to tears about some revelations she had. And what I found was, just by taking two very different people and putting them together and exchanging, we created some really cool experiences together and opened our minds up. And it was a random 2 days, right? And it just was, again, another example to me that, like, when we put ourselves together with other people, and those people have differences, you're going to learn something, and you're going to be super enriched. My trip, I will never be the same person because I spent those 2 days with Maki.
Wow.
Enriched is such a good term to use.
Yeah.
Right.
Truly. Like, there's never, I don't think you can go into a situation with somebody that's very different than you and say you didn't learn something.
Right.
Or come out enriched. I think you're so right.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I think that's a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah. Or you're just not craving the awareness to look outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is something we can practice. Let me ask you guys regarding
do.
the regarding the gay community. Like, what's the opportunity around diversity in the gay community? How do you feel diversity and gay can be like almost like a superpower, or how do you feel about it?
I think that's, first of all, diversity is a superpower to any community, but when you want to like bring it into a micro optic of the gay community alone, I think there's a beautiful perspective that you can gain when you come from a community, any minority, honestly, where there's been a common struggle, whether it's you've been on the outskirts of society or society has told you something that you're not welcome into certain groups. In the gay community, there is a diversity where all of those link us in a common way, but there's still so many different external parts of every gay human being that could harbor more education for your process, but you almost take it in a more dignified way because there is this common struggle. So like with your fellow peers in the queer community, because there's the common struggle, it's almost like any other level of diversity they bring, you're willing to hear more because there is one level that you really relate to with them. So I think there's this practice when you're stepping into the queer community, even as a solid ally like yourself, there's a level of willingness you're going in to educate yourself because you had to actively educate others about who you were, right?
I could see that. Yeah.
And that's a good point you brought up. As an ally, the gay community isn't exclusively just, gay people. It's, everyone, is the way I look at it. And you're right. The things that I've been able to learn from Helmut about the gay community and having an opportunity to learn and have relationships with people in the trans community, it's just made me sensitive to other issues outside of my own community in a good way. I think so often, folks are overwhelmed, if you will, when they think that, oh, I have to be aware of this group and that group, and it shouldn't be looked at as a burden, but a gift of sorts. And you mentioned the word superpower. And I do feel like, when you're able to sort of traverse different groups sort of seamlessly, it is like a superpower of sorts. And so I would encourage people to embrace diversity and to look beyond their immediate communities and look for those relationships outside of folks who...
I just love that you said the word sensitive because for me, you participating, and I think it's really hard for straight men to own the word sensitive because to me sensitive is such a strong word to say, because to me it means there's an inclination or willingness to be able to educate yourself when you are in an area where you don't feel educated. We are so fearful to walk in spaces where we may not have the same level of education as others, but being sensitive gives you an awareness of empathy and a willingness and a curiosity, and I think that's some of the most foundational steps you need to have before you can undertake accepting diversity into your life.
Yeah, and I think that word "curious" and being having a sense of curiosity is really important, because that is such an innocent word of sorts.
Curious George.
Yeah,
it's back to the to the childhood.
You're going to want to learn more, but also to the point you were making about being sensitive. Knowing up front that you don't know everything, right? And having an open mind and being willing to be educated and exposed. And so I think, if we reframe how I think really we've been brought up to approach certain experiences and sort of unlearn some of the negative connotations we have with sensitivity, with, not knowing certain things and that being okay, and taking a point to learn more, ultimately I think we'll be better for it.
I think you're right, and I will just add that I think that I've said this before on other recordings. No nation or tongue is not blessed by gay. And if you think about, let's say that I'm going to say it's 10% of us are gay in that group, okay, just because I just picked a number. There's lots of different, there's 7s and 20s and whatever. Point of story is, you take a very select amount of people and put them in this group, but you gather them together from all nations and all tribes into this way of understanding, and those allies that are attracted to it, and you get an opportunity to learn a lot about all cultures and all types, if you're willing to. So I'm going to suggest to you that if you're in this community, you have an opportunity to date, to befriend, to learn and listen to a lot of diversity. And that is, to the point, for anyone who's curious, that is a really special opportunity that the world is giving you to level your life up, and realize that is especially a blessing in this country. And it is one of the most beautiful things about this America. And people who aren't taking advantage of it are missing out. And that's why a gay America is going to be a great America.
Let's just go ahead and salute, really. No.
and protect your curiosity, right? I think, people will try to actively discourage you. And I would say resist that and, like I said, embrace your curiosity.
Yeah,
I love that.
Beautifully said, gentlemen. And now I want to take a second to talk about one of our favorite sponsors.
Yes, please.
R.S. Andrews is one of our favorite people, persons, place, and things. Our favorite noun to call when we need anything met with HVAC issues. If we need plumbing, electricity, they really know the skeletons of a house and they know how to do it. So if you need any help, give them a call or check them out at rsandrews.com. That is rsandrews.com.
Yeah, they have been an amazing support to the Gayly Dose. We appreciate them, and make sure you tell them that the Gayly Dose sent you. So I'm going to ask these boys the next question, which is really, how does inclusivity add to the value of the relationships that you have? We've touched on some of those points, but what does it practically do for you?
I'll start with that.
Okay.
And so we've talked about your relationship that you have with your daughters. And I think some of your experiences have really shaped how you intentionally parent. And me having 2 young boys, I've really looked at some of the things you've done in regards to openness and honesty and just being very transparent with them, and sort of taking that as a way that I want to raise my boys, right? Just being brutally honest with them. And if they have questions, giving age-appropriate answers and things like that. And really seeing the relationship you have with your girls, again, just wanting that with me and my boys, for us to remain close and them feeling comfortable to come with me with any questions that they might have.
Yeah. I gotta say, first of all, that makes me so happy. But that is really, it's like I developed some of that openness from being gay, right? And then as a dad, and then to know that because we're going through life together and we are diverse, we level up, right? Yeah. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
We're doing a great job.
Yeah, I was trying to like think of something really specific and beautiful to say, but I think I'm drawing it back to a very vague sense of diversity will help you just open your mind. And that's such a vague thing to say, but when you come into optics from people that just think differently than you do because of maybe a different culture they come from or a different way they were raised, you then have a different perspective to look at something. When you do, there's almost a gauge of empathy or sympathy that you have for just being human. And I know that sounds so cheesy and so vague, but it's also so true in the same regard. When you have more sympathy, you sit there and you're like, I have a tolerance to understand way more, and I chose that tolerance because I care. Knowing that, you then will have the ability to connect on deeper levels because you have a stronger willingness to understand somebody for the rights, the wrongs that we all have. Everybody has a right and a wrong in them. Everybody has made a mistake. And once you get past and admit that we all have been there, you can then learn and accept to love different parts of different people. And I think it brings more value to those relationships. It strengthens relationships, and it just can flood vulnerability in it, which to me makes everyone stronger.
Yeah. One of the things that Diane often says on the show is she says, we're all the same behind the eyes, right? And there's something about, I'll use an example of going to Kentucky. I spent some time working with mental health patients in Kentucky and rural parts of the country. And a lot of times we want to vilify, I'm going to say the far right or the people in rural places. But when you spend some time with them and understand the levels of addictions in some of these places, the levels of poverty, it's not the same America, right? And so while we're like, oh, those big city people, well, they're out there in the country suffering in many cases from a lot of challenges that we don't understand unless you take some time, befriend or spend time with them, and then you understand they're the same behind those eyes, right? They're just a different perspective.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that terminology because even when you meet people, we all have such a different even mental structure. The way we're able to digest things, process information, intelligence levels. I feel absolutely where you're coming from because it's almost like we all have a commonality of we all are struggling or suffering in some way. But I guess when I hear like we're all the same behind the eyes, I know where you're coming from. I think you know where I'm coming from too, where it's like, I definitely think we all have different mental structures and different abilities when it comes to behind the eyes.
Fair.
I think I know what you mean.
I get what you're saying, but I guess what I am trying to project is that we vilify people sometimes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
One of the things I see in our country particularly is the vilification of sort of like the city people and the country people, right? And we assume
Us versus them.
Right. We stereotype
I do it
people
every day.
and we're like, we think that they're this and this way, but like how many people do you know who aren't in the city or how many people do you know who aren't in the country? If we understood that we're more unified than we often think we are.
And I think you're right, and I think it's okay to acknowledge all the sort of external forces that work really against our interests, to see folks for who they really are, sort of their humanness, right? And so we do end up with this us versus them. And one of the things I really enjoy about traveling is an opportunity to be sort of pleasantly surprised, right? Like, so I'll travel somewhere to the rural part of the country and, I'll have perceptions of how I anticipate or expect to be treated, and I'll be treated nothing like that. And it's a refreshing reminder that, hey, you know what, why did I think that I was going to be treated one way, and really unpack that, because it's unfair to place those expectations or place those perceptions on others when they've really done nothing to deserve it.
Yeah. Incredible way to put that.
It's true. And I think a lot of our media plays into that, unfortunately, and our lack of diversity in our relationships. So let's talk about how do I practically, if I'm sitting here listening and I feel like I don't have enough diversity or want to encourage diversity in my life, how do I attract that to myself, or what can I do pragmatically?
I think there's a few beautiful things we touched on, first of all, which is we had a conversation briefly prior to recording today, which was about what becomes performative of like, am I trying to bring inclusivity into my friend group or my social situations because I want to perform to the public and seem like I am this diverse, seasoned, enriched person? I don't think that's the way to go about it. I think you should only go about things in your life in a genuine spirit. And I think that's what brings me back to getting in touch with your curiosity. I think that curiosity is going to be exactly what leads you in the most distinguished, genuine ways to the inclusiveness that will naturally gravitate your way. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, if you do take a look at your surroundings, say to yourself, I'm really in an echo chamber, like we totally said before, we can really sit there and say, I have a lot of curiosity outside of this. It's time for me to explore. And it'll be motivated very naturally for yourself.
And I would also say to really try to understand, if you do find yourself in an echo chamber, why that is. If you feel you don't have a level of diversity that you want, just unpack why. Is it that you have some self-consciously some
Bias, maybe?
are we going to edit this part out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some people have a guard up, you know?
Yeah, it's self-consciousness about themselves, or, you know, things that they would rather not delve into, or things that could possibly be revealed about themselves if they're surrounded from people, or surrounded by people who think differently than them, who look different than them, or a number of reasons. But I would say, again, to understand why that is, and to Jake's point, you know, to not let it be performative, to really want to be curious and to make it a part of your personal makeup.
Agreed. I always go back to this Daring Greatly book. I think that when we're uncomfortable, we're in an opportunity to learn, right? And be curious.
Oh my God.
And I will say, for some people, it comes from this genuineness. Well, you can still be genuine and not be comfortable. And that may mean just saying, you know what, I wish this in my life. I'm going to seek this in my life. And I'm going to use an example. I really didn't know many lesbians, okay? And I was like, I really want to understand the lesbian experience more. And I just manifested, that's what I want. The right people will come to me. And sure enough, like 3 different people came to me in like, you know, it was like 3 months later. And I was so open to it. And I genuinely learned from them. But sometimes it was being uncomfortable. It's being in a space where you're the only one that looks like you, or talks like you, or thinks like you. And it's okay, because then you're going to work through that, and you're going to start to understand, like, hey, okay, this is normal. They're just humans.
What does starfish
right?
mean?
Yeah, but it's a thing. Like, it's a thing, and you don't have to be like on a cruise ship to the Bermuda to do this. You can literally live in a small town and just spend time with people that aren't like you. Feel uncomfortable. That's the ticket. Just do it.
And that discomfort a lot of times represents growth. So if it feels a little uncomfortable, you're likely on the right path.
Yeah, I don't want to reiterate, but stepping outside of your comfort zone is the best experiences I've ever had. You come back to yourself, you process more, you're like, I just learned something about me. And in a selfish way, I think that's like the goals of diversity, is you do have a dual beneficial point where it's like you then learn more about yourself, and then you sit there and you're like, I just opened up and I blossomed. As sexual as that sounded, but
Yeah, no, it's true. She blossomed. So let me ask you then, I want to dream for a minute. Dream of a more inclusive world. Dream of a world which embraces diversity even more at the next level of your neighbors and your friends and your spouses. What does that look like? What does that world look like? What does it get you excited?
Well, I think what it doesn't look like is everyone being best friends, right? And so that's not the expectation, but we talked about it earlier. Some of the misconceptions that we have, or preconceived notions we have about groups. And I think the benefit would be removed, right? We talk about, there's a lot happening legislatively. I think the Senate is looking to codify same-sex marriage into law. And, it's hard for me to understand why someone would be so against it, right? And so when I think of, to your point, what would this world look like, it will be my hope that those folks who are so against, individuals living their lives as they see fit, that they would not have that feeling in their heart.
Yeah, oh my gosh, you just kind of took me into a whole spiral in my mind for a second of thinking about our nation, like our nation is the most diverse nation in the world. So you would think in a proposed logic way, there was more inclusivity every step of the way, but the truth is we still have so much to learn. And we are having political battles. We're having battles within our country about how to carry all these subcultures within one nation, and it's difficult. And I think the dream would be to live in a world where there was less war, where there was less conflict. You would think empathy would allow us to come together and be like it's a small world at Disney World, you know? But I think the truth is a more inclusive world takes a lot of work. And in a weird way, I think our nation and the way we're marching through history with our diversity is kind of showing that we are trying to do all this work up front. So hopefully the generations that come after us will have this innate part of themselves that welcomes diversity at every angle.
And I think it's a bit of a paradox because at this one end, it's simple, just see everyone's humanness. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge, why has it been so hard? Like you said, we still have so much work to do, yet it seems so simple.
Yeah, it is beautiful work. I look at it and I look at us like in time. This is one of the things that happen when you're over 40. You sit and go like, where do I fit in the universe and time? And you're like, this is a beautiful work that we have. This is a beautiful opportunity in this country, in the UK, in Australia, to bring together diversity under democracy. And we just got to be careful about consumerism, because I do look at, there's also diversity in terms of wealth.
Yeah.
Right, and privilege, and how do we share and experience life across those boundaries? I do want to say that I think an inclusive world looks like a world in which I am presented with a human and I don't assume anything about them until I get to know them.
That'd be hot.
Right? Because right now we still
fun.
look at people and we go, oh, they're this and this, and like I am literally putting this person, and it helps us to survive, right? Like that was like a basic skill, like when we were both like hunting and like in tribes, but like we're not there now.
Right.
Now it's like, just because you present as a tall white male doesn't mean that you're bigoted, doesn't mean that you're sexist, but I've got to take the time to learn it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you gotta, like, people aren't always what the packaging says that they're gonna be.
Ever.
I've always appreciated your optimism and your innate ability to see the positive. I think I've become a bit cynical, so we kind of balance each other out.
We do. That's why we're good friends.
In that way.
Saying that reminds me of like this beautiful quote from the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, where it is about optimism. He says it, but he's like, don't take my optimism for being naive. My optimism is a choice and a method of survival. And I think it is such a valuable thing about Helmut, and I'm so glad you point that out, because I think optimism comes naturally to me, but it's also a badge of honor, saying like, how much have we both been through to the point where we chose optimism as our survival mode. So while we wear it and you think it comes natural to us, it was a very honorable thing we chose.
Yeah, and it is one thing that I think, and we're gonna get to that because our final lesson, and our final lesson is gonna be about the new year. It's going to be about positivity and optimism. I think in all of these areas, there's so many messages coming to us, particularly from the media, that want to divide us, that want to destroy the beauty that we have through the division of us, as opposed to recognizing that it is through our integration that we are going to be amazing. And I don't mean amazing just for the purpose of America, but for the purpose of humanity on the earth. Like, we have a job here. Like, as humans, we're going to need to learn how to all take care of each other on the same little globe.
You got to get your ass up and work.
Yeah, and like, if we want to survive as a humanity, we're going to have to realize diversity is the key. It's the thing that makes the magic on the earth happen.
Get over our differences.
Right. Well, with that, I think we have one more sponsor to thank. It's Mike's turn into the sponsorship. Mike, who are we going to thank?
Framing on Peachtree Street.
Yes, Framers on Peachtree.
Framers on Peachtree, where you can go for all of your framing needs in Atlanta. Go check them out. They've been a huge supporter of the gay community here in Metro Atlanta, and they are on Peachtree right in Midtown.
They are. Actually, they're in Buckhead, but Midtown is not very far away. It is a little short, literally like 7-minute drive. I took a picture there recently. Okay. It's getting framed. I'm so excited. Tell them that the Gaylitos sent you. Ask for Brian, great guy.
And if you're not in Buckhead, where can you find them?
What is it? Framersonpeachtree.com.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Dolls everywhere unite. It's the Call to Kiki.
All right. So the call to Kiki this week and every week on this rest of this series is for the kid in us. No, it's not. Oh, shit! It's Lost and Found Youth. For the Kid in Us is the event we're doing later. Lost and Found Youth is also, listen, we love children. And who wouldn't? We do.
We do.
We're dads
We do. We
and
do love
moms
kids.
and like, honestly, they're our future. And particularly this organization, Lost and Found Youth. Lost and Found Youth is focused on taking care of children who are left outside. They are homeless. They've been abandoned by their families because of their queerness. Age 18 to 25, these kids are housed, they are fed, they are loved on, they are taught. We recently did an event with them. We met several of the kids, and I'm telling you, these lives are changed because of your dollars. Lost and Found Youth, it's lnfy.org. There's a big old donate button. If you're feeling in the holiday spirit, if you want to give to something that you're going to know your dollars returning well, go there or go to their donation center and give. They really are an impressive organization, and I'm super proud of what they do and super proud that we support them back. Yeah, which was a great little intro there on my part, right?
Yeah, flawless.
Flawless. You know what? You can't be perfect. I want to ask you guys, my favorite questions are always these two. So the first one, what from this dialogue do you feel stronger about, or might you change from our conversation?
I think I'm like in such a beautiful spirit tonight. Everything's beautiful for me. But a beautiful term that really just came to me is this level of humility we have to have in this space when we're talking about inclusivity, bringing in diversity. I think out of everything we stated there, and I know we just spoke to humility as a team, but I think these are foundational things that are super important when you decide to get more inclusive or want to follow that curiosity. It's so important, and I think walking along that line with humility and being able to say, I'm wrong or I'm willing to learn is really what I took away from tonight. Like that there are things you have to take with you as keepsakes when you want to take the journey of becoming more diverse of a person.
I really like what you said, Jake, about optimism being a choice and, you know, making that the honorable decision and choosing to see the best in people, even when, you know, the odds look insurmountable. And so that really, you know, struck me to counter some of my natural inclinations at times to choose to be optimistic.
Yeah. I'm going to throw in curiosity because you guys brought it up so many times.
It works.
So here's the deal.
Curious George.
I realize this. I've always been super curious as a person, but then you add to that the curiosity of other humans and trying to understand them. You know, diversity is sort of the secret sauce to understand. If you understand all these
The
other
secret
perspectives,
sauce.
you're like, wait, I was this way. That was my family raised in El Paso, Texas with these and these. Your family and you're like, you understand people better and yourself when you understand others, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so then there's the like, what are you gonna do differently? So like from now, because of this dialogue, what are some things that you might do differently because of our conversation?
Well, like I mentioned, you know, working on myself and not having those preconceived notions when I travel, when I meet people who don't look like me, right? Why do I assume those things? And just give them the benefit of the doubt that, you know, they're human just like I am.
I love that. I think for me, I really like stuck with the word echo chamber. I said it earlier and I was like, oh, because I live in Atlanta. I live in a beautifully queer city that accepts me when I go down the street, when I go to the gym. And I sat here and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am reaffirmed by my bias and my culture and my community every day. I need to be more aware of the echo chamber I sit in. And I think what I would love to do differently after tonight is be aware and say like, when you go up to your moms in Alpharetta, are you going to have conversations with people that could be strangers? Are you going to have conversations with your mom's friends? Like make that effort. Be curious. If you're not curious, how can you motivate it?
Yeah, I love both of those answers. All I'm going to add to that is I think we also carry diversity with us, meaning when you're enlightened about the variation in humanity and you've experienced it yourself, you can also guide others to it. And you can be a model of it, but you can really, I was thinking about like sitting with the moms at, you know, my life is very diverse. Sitting with the moms at volleyball practice in high school, out in the burbs, you know, the ability to say, hey, did you know this and that? And you kind of share almost a different, like a window to the world that you're in. It's almost an opportunity to aggressively be diverse, right?
Absolutely.
And I thought about that as I kind of thought about what do you do with all this light that you get from it, and just let it shine, right?
We're like kind of smart sometimes.
Yeah,
A little bit.
We sound like kind of smart.
yeah, but you know what? We're freaking genuine and we're loving, and I love that.
Genuine.
And that's the beauty of just being honest,
Yeah,
you know. And I
absolutely.
applaud it in these men that I'm with, and with you, because if you're listening to this, you sincerely seek and desire to be happier and to be genuinely so. So we want to remind you that we do love you. We hope that you continue to learn to love yourself even more and love others, and don't forget to smile.
Bye, you guys.